Money and happiness. Hi, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. Most of our material in this podcast comes from a book called Gross National Happiness by Arthur Brooks. He wrote the book in 2008, so I'm a little bit late coming to the scene here, but he's done some good research on this, and we're going to try to determine today in this podcast the relationship between money and happiness. And the brief answer is no. If you want a really short answer, if we're on an elevator and we only have one floor to go and somebody turns to me and says, does money buy happiness? The short answer is no. If you picture Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Maslow's theory actually is not very good and doesn't have much support, but the good thing is people know it. So when I say Maslow, you've probably got in your mind this triangle. And at the bottom is physiological needs, and then safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization at the top. When you're at physiological, more money makes you happier. After you get out of physiological into what he calls safety, love, esteem, self-actualization, it makes no difference. You want some numbers? Hey, this is a very broad generalization. But in general, if you're an American and you make less than $40,000, more money makes you happy. So if you're at $30,000, $32,000 will make you happier. $34,000 will make you happier. $36,000, $38,000, $40,000 will make you happier. But the distance between $40,000 and $40 million, that causes very little increased happiness. So, and this comes not only just from Brooks, this is from other things I've read. If you saw me in the hall and you said, does money cause happiness? I'd say at the physiological level, about under $40,000 in the U.S., yes, more money makes you happy. After that, no. And most of us are above the 40,000 range, so this applies to us. Okay, so let's look at what the Bible says about this. Well, in Psalms 144, it says, happy are the people whose God is the Lord. That's Psalm 144:15. Well, you're getting a hint about where I'm going here. It's religion that makes us happy, not money. Now, I've quoted this one in class often, and I'd say, money is the root of all evil. What's wrong with that? And of course, one of my good DBU students will say, Dr. Arnott, it does not say money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Look, in finance and economics, money is defined the same way. Money is a means of exchange. I'll do another podcast totally on money someday. But for today, money is a means of exchange. It has no value in and of itself. It is only something that you exchange for something else. Well, to love any kind of means would be anti-Christian. And even irrationally, think about it. You don't love the money. You love the things that money gives you. And we're going to get to that later in the podcast. Yeah. Oh, here's a summary for you in terms of politics and economics. These are some phrases I've stitched together from Arthur Brooks' book called Gross National Happiness. Here's something I've written based on what he has said. Look, conservatives are happy because they like what they have. Doesn't this just make sense? Liberals want to change because they are unhappy with the status quo. So we make this first determination. Conservatives are happy. Liberals are unhappy. This is just logical. It just makes sense. But liberals call for change that gives more power to the government, which makes them less happy. Are you getting the two things working together here? Liberals are unhappy with the present, but they want to change the world in a way that gives more power to the government. That makes them less happy. The more they succeed, the less happy they get. This just doesn't make any sense. Let's look at Brooks and see what he says. Gross National Happiness from 2008. So the first thing is money. That's my title today, isn't it? Well, here's what he says. Like nations and communities, individuals get little or no extra happiness as they get richer after this about $40,000 level, right? Even massively richer. It doesn't make any difference. And here's something I was looking for in the book that I didn't see as much as I thought. If you ran into me and said, what is Arthur Brooks' big theme? I would have said earned success. I heard him speak at the university. I've read a couple of his books. I followed him. He was the immediate past president of the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. I followed him a little bit. I would have said earned success. He says, this is what makes people happy. And he says in his book, this is a direct quote, it is success, not money, that we actually crave. And in other places, Brooks has called this earned success. And it's true of my students. If I gave them a grade for doing nothing, they would not be happy. They're only happy when they earn their grade, right? Easy money will not bring you happiness. Earned success will, says Arthur Brooks. More government spending makes us less happy in general. We'll get to government after a while. Okay, so does money make us happy? Under 40,000, yes. Over 40,000, no. Second, what makes us happy? Religion. I mean, I've often said the idea that what we Christians believe is this creator God, the greatest being we could ever conceive of, gives us the choice to accept or reject salvation. This is just astounding to me. How can that be? That's freedom, right? And so we're going to tie together in the next 6 or 8 minutes here this idea of religion and freedom and how that makes us happy. But make a point here. Arthur Brooks continues to say religion. He does not say Christianity. Now, I call myself the Christian Economist. So I'm going to try to interpret these from what Brooks calls religion to Christianity, which is a religion, right? So here's what he says in the book. People who live in religious communities, even correcting for other cultural factors in these communities, do better financially than those who live in secular communities. Economists have been interested in this finding for a long time, says Arthur Brooks in Gross National Happiness, right? So he says again, we know that on average, religious people are happier than secularists. This is undisputable, says Arthur Brooks on page 49 of Gross National Happiness. He continues, there's a huge amount of evidence that religious people on average engage in altruistic behaviors that spill over positively onto others far more than secularists do. Religious people are 38% more likely than secularists to give money to charity, and give about 4 times more money away each year, even holding incomes constant. They're 52% more likely than non-religious people to volunteer. We've talked about money, we've talked about religion. Here's the intersection of religion and politics, which is freedom. Item number 3. Maybe this is the summary of my message to you today, and this is a quote from Gross National Happiness by Arthur Brooks. Listen to this, quote, America's free market for faith. See, here's the point. In America, we have a free market for faith. People are free to go to church or not to go to church. You know, the famous statement by Thomas Jefferson about the wall of separation between church and state. There were state churches. Many of the original 13 colonies had a state church, and there was coercion to attend that church to get up in society. I don't have time to develop it today. Some Baptist preachers were trying to go from one state to another to preach, and the states said, you are not free to preach here. These Baptist preachers went to Thomas Jefferson, and he said, asked, what do you think about this? Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Baptist pastors, and this is where we get the famous phrase Thomas Jefferson said, there should be a wall of separation between church and state. If I had been advising TJ at the time, I would have said, that's not a good idea. It's good to coerce people to go to church because the more church people attend, the better life is. Isn't this what Arthur Brooks is saying? You know, Thomas Jefferson would have been right and Dave Arnott would have been wrong. It's a good thing I was not advising him because it's not so much religion, it's the freedom of religion. Thomas Jefferson was right? Let me go back to the quote. Just a few words from Gross National Happiness by Arthur Brooks. America's free market for faith. See, there you get it. You get the religion and you get the freedom together. This is what makes people happy. He goes on to say that American religion is a great engine of happiness, amazingly robust in the face of creeping secularism across the rest of the developed world. Okay, so now we get into this idea of how much freedom do we have? And does that make us happy? And of course the answer is yes. Here's what Arthur Brooks says. Public policies. Safety is always increased and freedom sacrificed. Okay, in the era of the coronavirus pandemic, we have seen this in our country. We have sacrificed freedom for safety. If you look about it in economic terms, I had a podcast just the other day called Economic Humanism, accusing the Fed of being too active. Why? Because that increases our safety, but it decreases our freedom. See, freedom makes us happy. Safety does not. and we're making this exchange. And Arthur Brooks is right. We should not make that exchange. Here's what he says, quote, safety is always increased and freedom is sacrificed, but almost never vice versa. This is not good for our gross national happiness. Continuing to quote him, our government has traded away our freedom for the sake of safety. He wrote this in 2008, but it's really prescient in 2020 with the pandemic. And let's go back to quote Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up liberty to purchase safety deserve neither. This is what we've done through the pandemic. We've increased our safety, but we've reduced our freedom. Yeah. Free market capitalism, says Arthur Brooks, is a key to our gross national happiness, and we should defend it vigorously. Why? Because that's what makes us happy. Freedom, you multiply in religious freedom, that makes us happy. Oh, I should have started with this, actually. You want to know the happiest person in the world? 4 things. Listen to this. The happiest person in the world, according to Arthur Brooks, I've stitched this together. He didn't make this exact statement. I've stitched this together. If you are a married, religious, American woman, those 4 things, you're the happiest person in the world. You've hit the lottery. You're the happiest person in the world if you are a married, religious, American woman. Congratulations. Yeah. All right, I have one more topic here, and that's work. Work makes us happy. Here's what Arthur Brooks says, quote, very happy people work more hours each week than those who are pretty happy, who in turn work more hours than those who are not too happy. Among those who say they are very happy in their lives, 95% are also satisfied with their jobs, continuing to quote Arthur Brooks in Gross National Happiness. Work brings happiness because it gives our lives meaning. Here's another good quote from him. The amount of leisure time each day has no significant effect on satisfaction at all. End quote, Arthur Brooks. And he says, not surprisingly, job satisfaction is generally lower, much lower in Europe than it is in the United States. 51% of American adults reported being completely satisfied or very satisfied with their jobs. Only 36% of the Dutch gave this answer, 35% of the British, 33% of the Spanish, 32% of the French, end quote, Arthur Brooks. Look, why are Americans so happy? Because we have the freedom to work. Look, here's the summary. What makes us happy? You ask an economist what makes us happy. Religion, freedom, work. You want to tie all 3 together? The religious freedom to work. That's what makes us happy. Money and happiness. I'm the Christian Economist, Dave Arnott, where our slogan is, fear God, tell the truth, earn a profit. See you next time.